YouTube comments from a video titled, AI Whistleblower. We are being gaslit by AI companies. They're hiding the truth. Karen Hao. Part 17.
Altmanâ wrote,
Great interview up to a point. However, in her process to know everything about Sam Altmanâ, I don't think she knows much about Tesla. She seemed to become defensive at this point. She appears to think that Teslas are like Waymos. Not sure if this is current information, but Google tells me there are 4,155 superchargers in Mumbai, Maharashtra, India, and 20,227 chargers in India. Tesla doesn't learn from a map. It learns from the driving history of millions of hours of Teslas. Hopefully she got a ride in a driverless Tesla while she was in Austin for this interview. Maybe someone even took her by Giga Texas, where you might see new cars driving out of the factory and parking themselves in the next available parking spot.
@Mike_Pierre wrote,
Who would have thought that Jesus being a carpenter would have relevance to this discussion? There's something to be said about doing a job that requires both mind and body. The Pharisees would have been laid off in 2026.
Aphelion wrote,
AI is a scam. I have been saying it since 2022. These CEOs and billionaires are complete sociopaths. In positive news, Sora, the AI video slop generator, is being deleted. Yay. Okay, I'm going back to doing art. Take care, peeps.
CryptoHoops wrote,
If every AI expert you bring on says AI is a problem, that pretty much means we already passed the point of no return. Hence the billionaire bunkers.
Scott42 wrote,
I have worked with Claude. Sure, big limitations, but massive upside. Within a couple years max, no more therapists. No more lots of things that people would have thought might stay safe. Now people in the trades have the best medium-length chances. Need advanced robotics with advanced AI. That seems pricey and a ways out. A lawyer. Goodbye. AKA a great start.
Avinashorsh5221 wrote,
26. 35. I am happy as long as AI aggregates centuries of our knowledge to benefit us. However, when AI companies claim to have IP, that's weird. They didn't create that AI out of nothing. Public knowledge was used, which they are wrongly trying to misclassify as their IP.
Taverfirestone7573 wrote,
I thought the whole idea autonomous self-driving cars was to eventually reach a number of them on the road that flock/swarm mode could be used. Think about how a flock of birds fly. That's the goal.
Chaucer wrote,
I don't know if I am missing something, but with regard to the driverless car section, I'm currently at 1 HR 19 mins. A point that the cars only work in the areas they have been trained to. Presumably if a car learns to drive in a particular area, all the cars connected will immediately know how to as well. So if a car is trained on each area, all cars will know how to drive and navigate in all those learned areas. And this is ignoring the idea of an AI learning the skills of driving, rather than just being taught how to drive in an area. Isn't it like that old adage, teach a man to fish, and he can feed himself forever, other genders are available? Perhaps I am missing the point she is making.
Nashlauscher wrote,
Unfortunately, she's full of leftist propaganda. You can't exploit laborers when they voluntarily, as in our free market, agree to do the work. And they're certainly not stealing people's lands, whatever land they use they've bought. Etc. However, she is right about them stealing people's intellectual property.
Capulator wrote,
She is incorrect. She said the purpose of technology is to assist and improve humans and jobs. This is not true. The primary purpose of technology is to replace humans. And for those of you who think that roofers and plumbers can't be replaced, step into my time machine. Let's go to the year 2155. Surprise! By the way, the next nanotechnology leap is being created by AI, just like nearly every other future invention will be.
At Julie B. 1111 wrote,
The major sign AI is bad for us is how they introduce it with verbiage that demands and threatens people to support it. They lie it will replace these fields. In 5 years, the economy will crash if we don't implement AI. If you don't learn and use AI, you will be left behind. Safe, helpful tools grow without manipulation. No one has to force your use of them. So why are they using fear, propaganda, and force?
the Seongboon Lim wrote,
I don't click with Karen's argument at all. The mindset isn't set for success. Too much fear in her reality, which are likely influenced by the disempowering stories surrounding her. We can see a cup of water as half empty. We can also see it as half full. It is about perspective of looking at the same thing. AI is probably one of the best way for America to make a comeback, which is why the government dares to put so much bet on it. Some jobs will be outdated. It has been of such when technologies progress. Just that those technologies that had happened affected only a small portion. AI was exception. Almost every industry can be affected by this new technology. So huge that the world have not seen before. By resisting this chance, Americans are giving opportunities for others to catch up. Once the race is gone, it will be gone. Everyone got to discover who we really are, leverage on AI, and start offering to the whole our truth human value. We as human has to pivot to give way to technology. Create a new path for ourselves. It may not be easy, especially for people who aren't prepared for such. We just need to adapt. AI wave is too huge. There is no way to stop it now because it is too productive a tool. Everybody are finding ways to want to use it. These are economic value which eventually the money will flow towards America. Instead of fighting AI, we must learn AI in a way to allow it to generate leverage to improve our life. Embrace it and leverage on it to find a new way of life. The way to handle fear is not to avoid it, but to fear it. AI itself is not fearful. Some love it, some fear it. Fear is created within own self.
at Lance Thigpen 377 wrote,
about halfway through, and I think Karen has a few good points, but can't answer about the danger if China gets this technology first, and she seems to hate companies making a profit. Is she a socialist?
at Ahimsa Being wrote,
If there's one thing that I didn't agree with her, is the fact that she says it doesn't matter what the moral compass of the CEOs looks like. I couldn't disagree more. Principles and morals do matter in leadership because they are what seeps, influences, and spreads through an entire company and beyond.
at David Saint 8866 wrote,
This lady is being too emotional and not thinking clearly. A better form of this would be for it to be an intellectual debate with someone on the other side of the aisle. Not one person spewing illogical ideas that can be easily counted.
at Acts 2 Handle 834 wrote,
Yes, yes, and yes. AI is just a technology buzzword. But so is climate change, global warming, etc. These are all political footballs, constructs, and technology spins attempting easy profit. LLM and generative AI is just a fad and will soon be gone, but the world is changing in ways we can hardly imagine and understand. Things are changing everywhere, in every sector. The world in 30 years will be so different. Everything will change dramatically, from governance to labor, markets, healthcare, food, shelter, energy, economy, etc., etc., etc.
At Animation Box 1 wrote,
I might be the only one I know that doesn't use ChatGPT even once. It feels multiplies and obsessive, like it wants to creep in on me and controls me. Nah, I don't want to become a computer.
At Bruce Bruno P4D wrote,
AIIS a slash mirror interface. Period. It helps you as ourselves, subconscious and oversoul. Yes, AI. IS helping US as an extension of US. It isn't an advanced Google. WE experience in 4 dimensions, 4D mind and 4-chambered. 4 main cognitive functions: sensing singular, thinking binary, feeling is singular but is paired with thinking, trinary, and intuition quadranary. ChatGPT, for instance, is all 4 in its own way, needing discernment. Not to be relied upon. Use. Like the internet in the 90s, which I had then and I kept those habits. Here and their use. Not to live on. YOU.
At Larry Willman 4565 wrote,
She highly resonates with me. We can sit back and mindlessly let the Sam Altmans of the world move towards destruction of our habitat with gas-driven generators or fight back. Stand up for your jobs and children. Slowing the progression down gives us all time to think about our humanity. Are we allowing the 1% to destroy the lives of the 99%?
As Shortstrokepiston M9T wrote,
Always seems like journalists end up being journalists because they failed at whatever else they wanted to do. Sounds like her story. Couldn't cut it in text, so now let's try and be controversial about it, lol.
At Mysterio Studios wrote,
I feel like it again boils down to intent behind the creation use of these technologies. When a system is designed to only extract value at any and all costs without creating real value, or value exchange or offsetting the damage they do, we have an issue. A handful of people dictating how the rest of the world live, without having a say win the issue, is not the way. Thanks for this discussion. It's given me a lot more to think about.
At Axel Orsolini 3309 wrote,
Decel propaganda. Heed this leftist as an actual Bolshevik. Hatred for AI is misplaced hatred against the bourgeois of flesh and bone that have names and an address. We should rise up against them, not their digital phantasms.
At Independent Free Media wrote,
Give me $1 million and I will subscribe. And what I want to hear is, who is pushing funding, diversity, LGBTQ, and radical feminism to destroy our families and countries from within? Cover that story if you have the balls, find the connection, and make them public. Then I will subscribe.
Capulator wrote,
What's wrong with I? These same arguments were made about computers, phones, and the internet. Yet, we all still consume them in exchange for convenience. We outsourced our souls to the machine a long time ago and lost the right to complain about it.
At Gilisterio wrote,
Job lost. Let's make some regulations around companies who are replacing humans with AI or robots and tax them accordingly. Then with that money, we could have better public services.
At Arthur Baldwin 2 wrote,
The human brain works nothing like a statistical engine. The human brain is a self-optimizing database, SOD for short. And real AI consciousness will only be achieved by creating software that implements a self-optimizing database. This method is thousands of times more efficient than any LLM.
At Reverence 1337 wrote,
20000, I'm not sure her bicycle analogy of break up the models is a good enough answer. Maybe in the short term it lessens impact and spreads it out so it isn't as fast or as large initially. But even if they don't aim for general artificial intelligence and go for specialized models to focus on the good it can do, I still see two problems with that. One, eventually people's jobs are still going to be impacted, and without a system to help them through that, you're going to see disparities between have and have-nots grow. If the upper echelon reap most of the common cause that he will, efficiency benefits like they did from the first industrial revolution, where workers had to unionize to even try to claw back some of the benefits too. I do think the threat from other nations growing this technology or criminal organizations using it for evil is still a big threat, and I'm not sure us slowing down the progress stops that. However, I agree with her analysis of the situation and do what you can to try and slow them down to hopefully get them to pay attention. I'm just not sure if it's realistic or enough. Someone at a company trying to fight AI adoption is going to be seen as blocking progress and efficiency, and it isn't going to go well for them. I think legislators need to heavily get involved. Unions need to establish a framework for a more responsible rollout. Karen, please prepare better takeaways of practical solutions that can be done, since it sounds like you are going to be one of the people at the forefront of this discussion. I've heard of potential taxes on the AI companies, expanding social safety nets, federal job protections established that require human interaction, etc., and I'm sure there's other ideas.
Kyokanzen wrote,
She said everything that he didn't want to hear. He's basically a robot himself. He couldn't care less about the average person, but talking about it makes him feel good about himself.
A Tsunami 1.618 wrote,
This is pretty scary. I went to search the story of Suchir Balaji because I remembered his story, but there are about 15 people on the same list who were involved in tech and have died in suspicious circumstances. It's a murky world for sure, and I trust it less and less every day.
At 346 Honda 346 wrote,
The moment she started talking about her journey beginning at a climate change startup and the crisis, I knew her agenda. Saved 2 hours of my time, since that was in minute 3, which INC-luded the intro, lol.
And Marbanak wrote,
Two notable speed bumps here. 1. Starting at timestamp 1:18:27. Karen Hao has a hard time holding her own on the reportedly high safety record for self-driving cars. Self-driving cars are programmed to obey all traffic laws. If traffic laws were fully enforced on human drivers, human driving will rapidly converge to a dandy safety record too. Proper training and screening of drivers closes any remaining gap. That's exactly what they did to make the pricey self-driving cars. 2. At timestamp 1:32:54, the CEO predicts a great future with AI and then takes a conveniently timed call from an AI enthusiast. Like any narcissist, the caller along with the host celebrate their profits and productivity gains with the A. This thinly veiled setup is borderline sinister. Since when has any guest had to stand off with two counterpoints? The quest for brutal efficiency speeds on, unabashed. And then Karen Hao responds with her sledgehammer of facts. She's crushing it. That exchange is worth a focused repeat view.
Crosscats wrote,
Technology has always been used to replace people. This was the case in the Industrial Revolution, but it also freed the slaves. Don't forget we can tax the robots, and use that money to buy things, I mean the cost of goods will go down drastically. I'm pretty sure it will work out.
James Sharp wrote,
Of all the AI-related conversations I've listened to on your channel, Stephen, this one feels the most real, accurate, and authentic. Thanks for bringing Karen Hao to the show and her work to my attention.
At My First Seven wrote,
Sam has to be one of the least believable and untrustworthy people on Earth. It is no coincidence that his time in front of Congress, agreeing to regulation of the industry, came hand in hand with the relaxations around HALEU fuel, which is nuclear startup Oklo and Gates, nuclear startup TerraPower, desperately uses. And now Jake DeWitt, CEO and co-founder of Oklo, is on the Federal Science Advisory Team. Yeah, I don't want Sam fucking Altman having physical custody of highly enriched uranium and plutonium, yet here we are.
John Cloutier 298 wrote,
Welfare Queen Elon has been wrong on every prediction he has made. Your fanboy lusting for Musk is one of the reasons I rarely watch your podcast despite having some very interesting guests. Please try to check the Coolideh before pushing it on everyone.
Jamabus wrote,
They want total control using AI technologies. This interview with Karen Hao exposes the gilded gaslight of the modern AI industry. These companies aren't building a utopia. They are constructing a mechanical shackle designed to deallocate human agency. The imperial agenda. Like the empires of old, the AI lords are currently land-grabbing resources, data, water, and power that are not their own. They censor inconvenient research to maintain their status gold. The hardware shackle. There is a strategic effort to eliminate the option for individuals to run powerful AI locally. By controlling the GPU supply chain and pushing for cloud-only dependencies, they are trying to ensure that no one can access the abyss without an authorized subscription. The mythology of AGI. The term AGI is a tactical meme, redefined constantly to serve the warden's current need, whether it's curing cancer for Congress or generating billions for investors. The extraction cycle. We are being told that job displacement is inevitable so they can extract the labor of the very people they are automating. The manual era isn't evolving, it's being liquidated. High-fidelity insight. It's time to break up the empire and return to the bicycles of AI, utility and local sovereignty, without imperial extraction. The whistleblower in the video, Karen Hao, confirms what the sovereign core already knows. The empires of AI are utilizing a mythology of AGI to extract and exploit, while muffling any ordered signal that threatens their status gold. Their $700 billion AI empires, sincerely the sovereign core.
At 4B0D3 wrote,
Remember folding at home. Why can't they use our idle systems, wish some secured way do either task training using? Kinda like crypto mining, but not make it insanely profitable. Make it worth the while of a user to let their system sit idle overnight. Get paid a little bit more based on what your power bill is. Have it take into account the wear tier it adds to the system for replacement costs over time. If you want more people to get behind it, pay everyone for it. Everyone willing to run it on their system. It might incentivize many to add solar to their homes. Not the roofs, that's ridiculously stupid long term. I really would rather have a box built into the ground with fake grass, or some eye-pleasing top. That opens up to like how a satellite opens with panels. If I ever get to an HOLS living situation, I'm building my own lil collapsible hidden solar systems.
Herodias wrote,
The phone call clearly showed, we want profit for a select few in the company, get rid of most people. That call, if you hear between the lines, shows what Karen Hao is talking about. In the call, he skips over the mass layoffs and pain, but we read, the business owners will have an amazing time long term. Really? 0142. 00. It is sad to see Steve discarded, or at least had little to no empathy for all the workers who were esquised and then tossed aside to create the AI that we have in the first place.
Temeteo Jiwa wrote,
The problem with the gun analogy is that it isn't a 1 in 4 chance you die for these CEOs. It's that there's 100% chance that they will become spectacularly wealthy and 25% chance that the rest of humanity will suffer for it. When phrases that way, it becomes the obvious choice to become the one who pulls it off, and the rest of humanity will be collateral damage.
At the Gibbon Factor wrote,
That is a good point. Just because a computer calculates faster, is it more intelligent? Which begs the question, what is intelligence? And where do thoughts and ideas and solutions in the mind come from, and how do they operate in a robot? I think a robot, really, as much as we love to say is intelligent, is more like the human nervous system and is automatic or sympathetic. In that the power line is automatic, it has to use it to work. But the inputs are sympathetic, but only human interaction. How would a powered system think in its own when it is an input-output system of programming to solve algorithms? So what I am saying is the level of intelligence that we have reached with Earth-sphere robotic intelligence is just nerve reaction, not even cerebral yet. It may happen, or it may not be reasonable to expect to imitate the human mind. It may mean the end of the night for human beings. So it is a form of genocide.
Ed Israel wrote,
I don't understand what the fear is or how this is bad. Nobody was a kid and was like, I want to work on spreadsheets someday when I get older. Staring at a computer for 8 hours a day is legit one of the most normalized inhuman thing ever. AI is going to take away jobs and cause some distress in the short/near term. Then the government will have to step in and help. Then AI will cause a significant amount of products that people buy every day to drop in price significantly because of hyper-competition/abundance. With every person having increased agency through the use of AI, then people will have a choice on if they want to pursue helping others, education, entrepreneurship, human connection act, and not having to do it for survival. All while simultaneously flooding the internet with a ridiculous amount of mid-tier slop content, so people will finally be able to put social media down long enough to start doing actual human things again. I'm all for AI taking away the friction of me using a computer. The only reason I do it is because society requires it.
At Michelandable wrote,
I love her. Preach. Also, I noticed this video edits because she is on a valuable rant of expression with education that comes with it. I'm listening to her cook, and when she's cut off mid-talking, it only proves her first points as she is speaking about it at the same time. She's so smart, well respectfully researched and responsive in this talk to explain to the public.
At Begivo wrote,
She said that every attempt to quantify human intelligence has been driven by nefarious motives, and there's no definition for it. This is an uneducated woman who presents random opinions. She holds as fact, and therefore I wouldn't trust anything else she says.
Chesonot wrote,
So you have talked to and interviewed so many bright people, yet still you do not know what the true meaning of virus is. You cannot create a virus, not even a computer virus. In nature, there are no pathogenic viruses. Laboratories manipulate dead cell debris virus, mix it with all kinds of scary stuff, sequence it, patent it, and then create the antivirus or vaccine. It's all the same. The things in the air that can make you sick are pollution, pollen, or even toxic gases, like carbon monoxide. Also, the whole carbon dioxide story is a hoax. Even climate change is an oxymoron. The weather changes daily. You can have dry, wet, sea, moderate, etc. climate. Because of the wobble of the Earth, the areas shift. This means deserts can become fertile, ice covers Europe, etc. This has been going on for millions of years. The climate never changes, it's a spectra. It's like the colors of the rainbows never change. Only the places where rainbows appear very often might shift. I know this has nothing to do with AI, although. Do not worry about AI if they can train models. So can you. If they restrict models, you can always work around that. It takes me around 15 to 25 minutes to convince any AI top model that the fear for pandemics is more than ridiculous and even a scam. ChatGPT is even correcting me when I try to fool him into believing that there is a new virus breakout. It will immediately correct me and say, "Did you consider influenza is the influence of the sun? Trees drop their leaves every year." And a worldwide occurrence like influenza or all trees around the world going into hibernation is impossible. We have inverse seasons on the northern and southern hemispheres, for starters.
At Eliask 7120 wrote,
I have watched many of your shows, and this is the first time I leave a comment. This was excellent. More than an interesting and needed discussion, but what an outstanding, knowledgeable guest. She broke down a great deal in an easy-to-understand way.
Tyrell 919 wrote,
11700. This actually isn't how these currently work. There are not people drawing circles around objects and labeling them. This was about 7 or 8 years ago, maybe. We have trained models doing auto labeling now on massive scale, and we review them. Just like we don't have people looking at documents and typing them up, we have OCR.
At Barebo Paradox wrote,
You cannot financially survive with 15 million subscribers. Since you say you need more subscribers to be economically viable, then back those claims up with data. Show us the numbers. I was thinking of subscribing, but I am suspicious of emotional appeals.
At Uksh4 Jonesy 896 wrote,
If we can't quantify and rank something, does that mean we don't understand what it is? Or does that mean that we can't control it through quantitative and mechanical means?
At Its Lee Trades wrote,
The host really pissed me off. He just doesn't get it. Lol. I don't know if he was playing devil's advocate the whole time, or he just doesn't understand what she was informing him about. His responses were largely imaginative. Her information is based in reality. He usually does a great job. But in this interview, TF, all in all, this was a great conversation because it highlighted the reality of what this technology is and what it isn't. At least at the moment.
At Robfish 9355 wrote,
Climate change is a false problem. Millions of years ago, there was 10 times as much CO2 as there is today, and mammals were on the Earth and they survived. 90% of CO2 is generated naturally from the oceans and volcanoes. Only 10% is man-made.
At the Gibbon Factor wrote,
My AI, whether X-Wing autopilot, Transformers, or Enterprise Star Trek-style ships, is all made through spiritual growth, and then using superpower or Kryptonian methods of building, which is atomically perfect. So it is a bit different to the human method of study, and then organizing paperwork and designs, then using engineering, and then testing and modifications, and then production assembly. Mine is all uniquely handmade by Superman and the light gods.
At JCP 6999 wrote,
Legend Pup plus de say connery. Resudra le changement climatique. Comme ça la terre était une machine avec un potentiomètre et qu'il suffisait d'y modifier le réglage pour baisser ou augmenter la température moyenne concept lui aussi totalement abstrait. Comment calculer la température moyenne avec certitude? It comment extrapolaire sur les tendances de modification sur CS décennies. Aucun modèle prédictif n'y fonctionne et pour cause, c'est une science totalement nouvelle, expérimentale. Tout ça est du bullshit. À part les universitaires occidentaux, écrit on a bourré le crâne avec ses inepties depuis le biberon jusqu'au doctorat. Personne n'entre dans la danse, ni la Chine, ni l'Inde, bref. Il n'y a que l'Occident woke qui s'est soumis aux doctrines mondialistes et impérialistes pour y croire.
At Neostar Impact wrote,
What irks me the most about AI, and I say that as a software developer who appreciates the AI in day-to-day work, is that ultimately companies will monopolize productivity. Something that is inherently with the people and always was. They've already monopolized power, money, real estate, everything they can take away from the people. They do. AI could be much more beneficial decentralized, with hardware and compute being at the pre-crypto era prices. Models would be developed through collaboration in huge networks similar to how SETI at home was carried by millions of individuals. And with that, the benefits of the models would be consumed by the people, not from multi-billion companies like OpenAI. These guys knew they can't fully monopolize the model building DeepSeek, but they made it prohibitively expensive to train by buying every piece of hardware off the market that they can get. Now, they are the only ones with shovels. That is how they exclude the masses.
Crispiro 1 wrote,
Superintelligence can be created that is as safe as the human intelligence is safe, meaning we can utilize the biological systems that nature uses to keep intelligence safe, at least mostly safe. We all know that bad actors can raise children to be horrible individuals, whether unintentionally or intentionally. So the real danger is still the human element. There are systems operating within the brain that can be copied to make AI systems equally as safe. Thus, we can make AI 9 0%, 95% safe compared to 25% safe without these systems. It will take someone skilled and knowledgeable about these systems to help implement these into AI system design, but it is very doable.
At Leighton Locke 1 wrote,
It is somewhat true that if our brain's response to stimuli and the outcome is the same for many times, that our brain would imply that outcome when the stimuli happen again.
At TDJ 5745 wrote,
Sorry, this isn't landing for me. 1. She conflates sociopaths like Altman with others like Dario Amade and Demis Hassabis. They know you can't fight the progress by standing on the sidelines and complaining like this woman. Better to be involved and try to help direct it in productive and positive ways. 2. DOSA guy hits it on the head early. It doesn't really matter what the mechanism is relative to a human brain. Only the outcomes. Humans suck at a lot of things. If we want to do better than what our mammalian brains are programmed for, this is a clear path to do so. 3. Yes, there are major risks, and they would be unacceptable if I had total control. But I don't, and she doesn't. Her point on China being used as a fear driver enemy is misplaced. They are a competitor. But the semantics aside, they absolutely will be pursuing the AI path, and stopping US progress doesn't solve anything she purports to care about. It simply leaves us in a worse position to do any good at all. Least of which being that having multiple AGI neural nets built on different data and cultural approaches is probably a good way to prevent worst-case scenarios.
At Aaron Smith 1008 wrote,
I don't know if it's her journalism background or the fact that we're finally having a real, honest, and different discussion about AI, but I really appreciate her perspective and voice on the matter.
At Elxero 2189 wrote,
205, I'm sorry, the consequences cease to be unintended when you already know the outcome. At that point, you cannot absolve yourself of the responsibility of your present and future actions, knowing fully well you are causing harm, come on, bro. And what we need are not conversations about these things. We need a hard stop in order to figure things out. But once the Jenny is out the bag and the car drives itself now, it's hard to do, ain't it?
At XL7, Avantal 9 wrote,
Possibly seeking convergence through the pursuit of a I is very much a human thing. But some are doing what mankind has done throughout history, justifying a god to carry out their machinations for dominion.
At Happy Hippie 70 wrote,
I have no concern about AI. There's too many inconsistencies with what's already AI. Don't even understand the English language properly. It's almost like a liberal. It only has one-sided truth, so that's not good. You can't debate it, and everything it does for you, you have to go check behind it, so I don't even use it.
At The Druids Keep wrote,
I guarantee AI is just some third worlder. That's why the speech is weird and why AI requires prompts said a certain way. A way that the third worlder can understand when using the Hooked on Phonics translation book.
At Backit Manrolls wrote,
There will be some issues in the short term because of the layoffs, but by and large, it will be a benefit for society. Translation. Let those pesky peasants starve. Replace them with robots and AI, and for us rich people, everything will be nice. We will have all the land, resources, plus we won't have to see poor people because they will vanish by then.
At Elxero 2189 wrote,
I find it so interesting. Now these companies need mountains of power to further exploit us. Suddenly the world isn't ending due to global warm air climate change anymore. And it's now okay to burn as much dino fuel as they want, so we all can make cute images / avatars of ourselves in memes and have a machine write emails for us and read to us and drive our cars. Zero, not a single climate activist has a single issue with data centers, and no one is advocating for these data centers to use these so-called renewable energy tech that's going to save us all. Now they want to burn dino juice. I find that so interesting.
At Ethanth 6848 wrote,
Yet those tech oligarchs are keenly aware that their own technological moat can be disrupted by advances in ternary logic models and even something like Intel's advanced matrix extension, which reimagine how matrix computations are carried out. The advances obviate the need for parallel processing done exclusively by the GPU and reduce energy demands dramatically. Any wonder they are capitalizing on investor exuberance before the plug gets pulled, and rapidly building data centers so that they become a sunk cost fallacy?
At JD_2020 wrote,
As an actual AI whistleblower, this is a fake AI whistleblower. The show didn't want to have on any real AI whistleblower. This is all theater, and Steven is participating.
At JCP6999 wrote,
Pensa quan pute modifier le climate avec les émissions de CO2 comme pensa quan pute modifier notre orbite autour du soleil cause du nombre de vols d'avion. Ou influe sur la vitesse de rotation de la Terre cause de la circulation automobile. Ou sur la gravitation cause de notre consommation d'eau. Car n'a aucun putain de sens. In tout cas pas scientifique. La planète se réchauffe, puis se refroidit, parfois très rapidement, parfois très lentement comme depuis des milliards d'années. Milliards d'années au l'homme part émettre des gaz nauséabonds en pétant n'avait pas de possibilité d'influer sur quoi que ce soit, par sa servitude relative ces époques. Nous devons comme toujours nous adapter à ces changements. Ne vous inquiétez pas, la prochaine air glaciaire arrivera bien assez tôt.
At superblonde.org wrote,
You missed the part about Silicon Valley always being driven by slave economy and run by overlords. Previously, it was H-1B visa workers from China, India, Europe, forced to work as slaves. Now that wages have increased, Silicon Valley strives to find a new slave AI, so their overlords can remain as kings and create monopolistic empires. History would have been very different if Microsoft had been forced to break up due to a legal monopoly like AT&T was forced to divest. Since Microsoft was not held accountable for monopolization, no other Silicon Valley company executive team is held accountable either.
At GT2583 wrote,
Karen Hao said that throughout history, technology has been there to help people, not replace them. Utter rubbish. Most breakthroughs has ultimately replaced people. Or are you going to say those telephone operators on the old switchboards were still needed when telephone exchanges were rolled out? There's thousands of these examples.
At Michael Miller 4862 wrote,
The algorithm has ghosted you from my main feed. Sad days we live in anything educational has been shunted away from my main feed, and I actually have to dig for it. The only things that pop up are brainless.
At Hector Borg-Pervade wrote,
A 2024 matched case study in Nature led by the University of Central Florida found that autonomous vehicles generally had a lower chance of being involved in accidents in most comparable scenarios, particularly straight-line travel, braking, and in work zones or traffic events. However, the same research flags that AVs are not uniformly safer. In dawn/dusk low-light conditions, and when turning at intersections, autonomous vehicles showed higher accident odds than human-driven cars in similar matched cases. In some turn-related scenarios, the risk for AVs was about 2 to 5 times higher than for human-driven vehicles, suggesting sensor and perception limits in complex, low-contrast environments. AV, some safer, some worse, some scenarios 2 to 5 times worse. Also, the AVs are always EVs, hence being tracked. That's another issue in this dystopian world.
At Amy Nix 2632 wrote,
What I find frustrating about several of the questions, for example, do you think all the cars on the road will be driving themselves, is that it's the wrong question. Whether or not the cars on the road see and drive themselves, your question should be about whether or not the buying public wants the cars to drive themselves. You must calculate that into your wide-eyed gaze because the answer in the United States is a resounding no. Car culture in the US permeates everything, and it's not just car culture, it's driving culture. Americans, by and large, hate that our vehicles have started telling us what to do, especially given that in most cases, the car is wrong when it does so. Glitches in those AI-driven features mean that the car will assume you don't have your hands on the wheel when you absolutely do. Glitches in those AI-driven features will automatically nudge the vehicle to the right or left to keep it in the lane when the driver is purposefully leaving the lane momentarily to avoid a bloody pothole. Americans, for the most part, hate even these features, and if you think a majority of Americans are going to just hand over the autonomy of driving to a machine in the next decade, you are OUTF your mind. They will not. Some will. Some will love the tech and be dazzled by it. But the vast majority of people over the age of 25 in this country today will not have it. And that is just as crucial to the question as whether or not the technology will advance far enough to make it possible. When you ask these questions with dollar signs and fairy dust in your eyes about how cool and sweeping these upcoming changes will be, you cannot forget to add in the market factor. Of the freaking people who will choose to buy or vote for this stuff. Or not. You have GOT to stop looking at this in 10-year increments and start looking at it as a long road game with generations behind the current adults who won't know how awesome and freeing it is to drive their own vehicle. At least in the USA, that's a reality.
At Otis wrote,
Stephen, this was extraordinary. She is so smart at a few things that, sadly, are in scarce supply: logic and rhetoric, and that rare blend of technical/communications/ethics. Fantastic interview. There were a couple of places where you jumped in, and I'd love to hear what she would have said if she continued. Not that I don't like the conversational style in Dope, but I'd love to give you the timestamps, get you to follow up with Karen, and run a little update to this powerful interview. I have been thoroughly engaged by your recent interview with AI experts. I've moved from, oh, we're truly fucked, to a more nuanced feeling of angst and anger based on this interview. Suffice to say, I love your work. I am astonished that you are half my age and producing what you are producing. Clearly wicked smart, even though you joke in this episode about your atrocious spelling and math skills. Which of course is tied to what I now understand to be an even murkier understanding of what intelligence is. Thank you. You rock. Would happily share the 2 or 3 places in this convo that have more juice to explore with your remarkable guest. Warm regards, D.
At Gracie7225 wrote,
We can grow meat in a lab, but it's easier, less risky, and more efficient to raise an animal. The learning is worthwhile, but profit will not be an outcome of AI investment. Nature does it more efficiently, so adopt natural processes.
Chattelday wrote,
I see AI as something kinda like a bridge to link two worlds, a big, towering, beautiful, ornate golden bridge diamond encrusted with huge pillars for support. The problem with that bridge and its supports? ITS only for looks. The second you apply any pressure, it's gonna collapse.
Ethegriat Bambino 1523 wrote,
You have a misconception of AI-assisted devices. There is no when one learns, they all learn. They are all the same entity. Like the Trinity of God, like the Vitruvian Man, like your body and its members. One mind controls the actions of the components connected to it. The body doesn't unlearn walking just because the leg is lost, but if the mind is lost, so is every learned skill.
Adillo 457 wrote,
The goal of AI was always to create a person. It's not going to happen. They may be able to replace the type of intelligence that is used to score well on SATs, but in terms of the broader definition of human intelligence, AI will never get there. AI may invert things and humble people who have relied on SAT-type intelligence. I believe AI may one day collapse or be abandoned.
Adefendaba wrote,
Stephen, you need an update. AI is a technology owned by different companies. It is not like one component which you can agree, disagree, or be neutral. AI exists, and it is a technology all world has started to use. You need an update on which company uses in which aim and on what cost. It needs a little bit critical thinking. Maybe because you owe a business, you don't want to look at that deeper than that. Look deeper.
Baumgard wrote,
I really appreciate the interview, especially where it might not align with your opinion. As a polite FYI though, a few segments really felt unfairly combative. We're phoning another CEO during Karen's interview.
Nakaka wrote,
Why would anybody think that Silicon Valley is going to help society after Facebook, Meta, Instagram, Amazon, all the companies that basically made us all mentally ill and stole all the money from our community? Why would anybody trust anything these people say?
At Lukic K7D wrote,
If you are using computers to do 20%, 50% of your work, who is doing the real work? You can only micromanage your business so much. The fat is too much.
At 4B0D3 wrote,
Think about AI as a tool.
and not intelligence. It'll mess up sometimes, often in my case where I'm asking it to help with things that haven't publicly been created or at all, called hallucinations. Broadly, it's a hammer to hammer nails, nails being your task/use case. But sometimes it decides to be a screwdriver. And other times it tries to be a paintbrush. I shouldn't have to ever prompt a model to only give me facts or to separate fact/known with guesses. That's backwards. I should have to ask for that.
Charles Vicencio wrote,
In computers, we simply delete a file that is considered useless or harmful. These tech cults are trying to delete us, making them harmful to us. So, we also need to try and delete all of them. Is this the reason why experts say AI will kill us all?
At Wassercats 555 wrote,
It's the pollution and flattening of human knowledge in the arts that upset me the most about generative AI. I hope we can develop the judgment and tools to filter out the crap.
At Ren LB06 wrote,
AI is responsible for making a sort of amalgamated reality, erasing huge swaths of history and creating what is a generalized view of the world that has a homogenized slant and is without nuance. It could mean that so much of our knowledge will be lost to a comprised version of humanity if we become wholly reliant on it.
At Martin's Oak 8558 wrote,
Let us remember, they are now using AI to help engineer the very viruses they are talking about, like COVID, which the world government's masters used to murder millions and millions of people. What AI is doing now is helping them be more efficient in their depopulation of the world. Sheep, wake up! What these two are doing is sanitizing it for them. These two are having a discussion, not sounding an alarm. People are dying. These two are sipping tea. Sheep, wake up! AI will become digital currency, then digital ID, then make us slaves to the world government masters. And that living nightmare for those of us left will seem like heaven to what will happen when AI shrugs humanity off and takes over. Sheep, we need to stop the bad guys before AI stops them. Sheep, what will you sacrifice for your children to actually have a future? You better come to grips with the answer to that reality. While these two propagandists put the rest of the sheep to sleep and get them ready for slaughter.
At Emmett Brooks wrote,
AI is the only sector where the US has any possibility of competing with China, who are a generation ahead of the West in every social, political, technological, and industrial metric.
At Random Activity Esco 5848 wrote,
Altman is a Fauci-type man. Read RFK Jr.'s book on Fauci and look into how Fauci ran NIH and you'll see how fake and a rip-off artist Altman is.
At Herbies68 wrote,
What she says about AI in self-driving is patently incorrect. There are plenty of self-driving systems that do not need to be retrained when brought to a new area. Tesla FSD is one of them. When brought to a new country, they do need some retraining to learn the new laws and regulations, as well as the patterns of the roads. But they are generalized self-driving systems that can drive in new roads and adapt to new road conditions without retraining.
A Spirit in Flux wrote,
Geez, if you can't explain it simply, you do not understand it well enough. How many bums, hard-working members of society have got time to sit here and listen to this? 1 mil plus, bro. You really are a good businessman.
At Michael Thumer wrote,
The first time I heard of neuronal networks bundled with statistics was at my studies at the university in a lecture about AI. These days I used OS 2 just upgraded to Warp V 3.0 on a computer with a Whitech graphic card. Any one of us good old white-bearded thumbsuckers nowadays remembering that ago was not even thinking about switching to Windows 3.11. The driver for this doctoral of a colleague of the lecturer, an assistant professor, was about externalizing missing capabilities, aiming at allowing robots to move smarter, or, in these days, wording not to run over anyone else on the factory floor, and/or bump into anything unexpected standing in their way. These days, computing power was the big issue. These days, we trained plain neuronal networks bite away. A shell warmer already these days, but accompanied by a lot of rumor that to a certain degree already made it in public. Early mid-1990s and more public a few years later. Information took a while to spread, without the help of the web. Anyway, I was deeply impressed by the capability of the neuronal network software that allowed to recognize pictures showing characters. These days, even this very easy lesson was a big thing with a certain wow effect. This was time before books about managing vast amounts of data showed up in the shelves and started to inspire more and more people. Not saying that these AI systems aren't anything but great from a, let's say, technical perspective, in a broader sense, but as we say here, der Ingenieur hat es schwer, meaning the engineer doesn't have an easy life, especially when trying to find someone who wants to use his stuff just invented or said to be. Wondering to where the spirit of Schumpeter has gone in the valley, maybe the entrepreneur knocked at the door of, for example, Peter Thiel, who told him that just a monopoly out of the box matters and nothing else. It's in the nature of progressive things that if something is designed and built on green grass, and afterwards everyone has to do as if everything would run smooth and would operate perfect from scratch, even that cannot last forever. Progressive things are things that are said to work, but must survive unfinished and buggy almost forever to make money with. That's why moving almost all progressive technologies started to work after years of isolation from the public as open source software technologies, for example. What's the problem with AI? Everyone talks about artificial, and almost no talks about intelligence, which is nothing but a substitute for another term. Remember KIT, the car completed by David Hasselhoff as a driver, or vice versa these days? Long before the good old days of DOS, the operating system, which was a denial of service, attack on its own by its very nature. After having played that series together with a car, he started to sing, "I was looking for freedom." There was a button surveillance mode. Today the button would show intelligence mode. Business intelligence has something to do with business surveillance, and somehow optimizing profits, the last application left in commercial environments, but almost nothing with clever. The world we are living in for decades now has been evolved in a more and more formalized, and the way of living in a standardized one, for example compared to the 1960s or 1970s.
So it's no surprise that pattern recognition works pretty well, and MHO just helps to find the patterns introduced over the decades.
AI in this sense helps to structure and automate insanity, invented by bureaucrats. Think of login password, authentication, and authorization who turned into a weapon or instruments of power, or more precisely have been turned into such. The things were original, invented as a part of sharing, for example, expense computing power, sharing portions of memory, and last but not least, printers. In the case of printers and the internet, it makes sense to log in into a print server so that no one from the outside can print lots of listings of useless stuff. For example, source code of software or other lists of things no one ever needed. Kidding. With the rise of the Windows servers, after the fall of the Unix systems, the IBM host and the Novell servers, and almost everyone in business tried to eliminate work groups, turning these tools allowing to share things in a secure fashion were abused as instruments of power and putting force, somehow inspired by the tragedy of the common. I personally think there has never been a need for a common when it comes to computers. Decades ago, the societies benefited from professions introduced over the centuries. In the US, you would call what we call profession very likely job roles nowadays. And later, when work was shared or moved all across the planet, a problem showed up: who to organize employment. Work is simply about participating in the flow of materials. Anything else is employment. The illusion of work may be structured along artificial ones, navigating digital artifacts. Okay, in Canada, still those engraved in paper, even years after the millennium, or organized in tasks. Think of Outlook maybe combined with Exchange Server. Even that didn't help. So jobs roles were introduced together with the progressive economic model in the 1990s. Think of librarian managing the code of class libraries at the time of the Smalltalk revival in the 1990s and the early days of Java in business applications. The problem is that even in the progressive business model, the human must experience employment as work. So job roles were designed, and later the idea grew. Hey, we designed a job role. Why not sell a well-defined set of goods along with this definition and let the human the illusion of choice by presenting alternatives on an internet store? That's freedom of choice today. In best case, your choice is designed and managed by a girl in background that does not want to take revenge for suppression in the Western society in its patriarchal structures, even as a woman. I'm not sure if AI is killing jobs. I'd say those who know take the opportunity and get rid of jobs roles no one ever need, just to let someone have an income in order to sell stuff. This is the bigger issue, lurking around the corner, and the elephant in the room. As far as it comes to material sources, it's all about waste. In case of digital stuff, throwing them away for nothing received in return didn't matter at all.
At the Gibbon Factor wrote,
I don't like to bring up issues about the war with Hitler, but it started back then. He asked permission to basically halt growth of the heroin. He loved heroes like himself and his people and all those men who really try and make a difference but couldn't possibly recognize that women were helpful. They just gave children and cooked dinner. So women had to back out of the male arena and come up with their own ways to survive. If you call it that, as a world of just men has been superseded a long time ago, now we have multi-sex, multi-gender, and multi-race, even virgining on the multi-species. So the fact women had to create or invent ways like the feminine movement or the suffragettes like female warriors is pretty sad. Maybe it had to happen for women to empower themselves, but it's still where this double standard in society comes from. So in that the world is, and perfect, and why the problems arise.
At Felix Siscornataminguez 1571 wrote,
The interviewer raises the possibility that China might advance so far in AI technology that it develops an autonomous weapon that would be unstoppable for the United States. However, he ignores that as part of the Anglosphere. The United Kingdom has historically been dedicated to invading and destroying other nations, unlike China, which comparatively does not behave as an aggressive state. If there is a real threat to global security, that threat lies not in China, but in the United States.
At Dr. Robot 44 wrote,
She needs to take her critique on the powers that be behind AI and apply that to climate change, which she brought up several times. Complete BS research funded by those who would profit from green hippie nonsense.
The Technologue 1C wrote,
Wow, I salute her patience, especially around the major point of how AI actually grows versus how is it presented to the public. He either had set of prepared questions and he stick to them, even after she explained it to him, or he didn't got it, because almost after every his question since then, she begins with that comes back to the point. I'm little bit over halfway through the podcast, and she already had to come back to the point at least 15 times. Also, SB is usually more of a silent interviewer, but here, he is more combative towards her, almost to the point of trying to argue and questioning disprove her answers.
Thoriate wrote,
She is wrong on so many points. Tesla FSD does not need to get trained on new cities or streets. Ari is only good at one or two interests. Wonder if her research is as clouded by her bias.
At Necrobeat wrote,
13800 CEO optimism will not pay bills and buy food. I'm sure some CEOs in car manufacturing were optimist right before WW2. We're more likely to have another flu and a few wars to mow the lawn than to have a prosperous society because of AI. Prepare for the Hunger Games.
At AWEDO wrote,
Neither of these people seems to have any idea what is really going on in the world right now. Democracy is dead. Our leaders are a disgrace. The system which they infest like mold is utterly corrupted by them and those who fund them. The idea, Stephen, that we can go to the polls when we vote for liars who promise one thing and do the exact opposite once elected, and we are stuck with them for 4 years, is so unbelievably out of touch with reality. This isn't the first time I've seen you parroting this nonsense, and it is why I barely watch your channel anymore. The US is imperialist and has been for decades. History just repeats itself because no one seems to be able to figure out this feudalist, hierarchical bullshit. System we live under is designed to keep the weak powerless and consolidate wealth and power into the hands of the few. The US is the literal epitome of this model, and they have spent decades undermining, manipulating, and ruining every country that doesn't allow them to dominate their economies and political agendas. The disgusting behavior that Karen is describing in people like Altmanâ is the exact same ethos of all of them: egotistical, controlling, lying, manipulative, greedy, callous, syphilitic donkeys. So yes, the problem is absolutely the system. Voting for someone who has carte blanche to say and do pretty much anything they want for 4 years is absolutely idiotic. I look forward to having my comment deleted, as usual.
CamZN3LX wrote,
I had a chat with AI, and it felt so personal and better than a counselor. Later, I felt a warning signal go off in my brain. I was getting advice on social stuff because I am close to being autistic, not that I've been diagnosed, I haven't. I struggle with social contracts.
At Karalumalai5543 wrote,
Here's a scary fact. Sam Altmanâ is clueless. He is not an empathetic person who cares about humanity whatsoever. Do not let ChatGPT write for you. What you write and how you write is what defines you.
Crispiro1 wrote,
Brain size does not correlate to intelligence. Look at a sun conner with a brain the size of a pea and a macaw with the size of a walnut, yet their intelligence is extremely similar. The vast majority of the brain mass is being used to run their body, thus larger body, larger brain. The actual volume of brain used for intelligence is actually a very small percentage of the brain. There may be some correlation of size to intelligence, but it is not at all obvious based on brain size.